Guangdong and Guangxi, China, night of May 21st, 2026. More than 100 villages began disappearing underwater. Familiar roads turned into rivers within just a few hours. People woke up in the middle of the night, only to discover floodwater already entering their homes. Meanwhile, a massive rain belt stretching over 1,000 kilometers remained nearly stationary above southern China. In the city of Enping, rainfall reached nearly 650 millimeters within just 24 hours. 650 millimeters. That was no longer just rain. It felt as if the entire sky was collapsing onto the earth. And perhaps the most frightening part of all, many experts warned this may no longer be considered normal weather anymore. Welcome back to Natural Destruction. Here, we do not only follow disasters, we explore human stories, memories, faith, and the way our world is changing before our eyes. In the early hours of May 21st, millions of people across Guangdong and Guangxi were awakened by relentless rain pounding against rooftops. Phones continued vibrating nonstop. Red rainstorm warning, flash flood warning, landslide risk warning. At around 6 a.m., many people opened their front doors and froze in shock. The familiar street outside had disappeared beneath muddy water. From May 17th to 21st, a giant rain belt over 1,000 kilometers long remained nearly motionless over southern China. The system pulled moisture from the South China Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the Pacific Ocean, then released enormous amounts of rain over the same region for several consecutive days. In Enping, Jiangmen, rainfall reached approximately 650 millimeters within just 24 hours. 650 millimeters. That no longer resembled an ordinary storm. It felt as if the sky itself was pouring down onto the ground. By midday, on May 21st, Guangzhou was nearly paralyzed. Roads transformed into rivers, floodwater rushed into underground parking garages, apartment basements, transportation stations, and underground tunnels. Videos spreading across social media showed cars floating through the streets, motorcycles nearly fully submerged, people wading through waist-deep muddy water. But perhaps the most haunting thing was not the water itself. It was the realization that a modern city with tens of millions of people could still become helpless before nature. Perhaps many older viewers watching these images felt the same thought. The world feels different now. Years ago, rain was simply rain, but now it can make entire cities afraid. Perhaps many people watching natural destruction right now have lived through nights like these before, nights when people could only sit quietly, listen to the rain, and hope everything would somehow be okay by morning. If stories like this remind you of a certain place or a certain chapter of your life, you can support natural destruction by subscribing to the channel so we can continue walking through these stories about a changing world together. By the afternoon of May 21st, drone footage began spreading rapidly across Chinese social media. More than 100 villages across Guangdong and Guangxi were submerged beneath brown floodwater. From above, entire communities looked like isolated islands. Roads completely vanished, small bridges disappeared underwater, and neighborhoods became cut off from the outside world. Perhaps the saddest part was not only the physical destruction, but the memories being washed away with the flood. An old restaurant, a familiar market, a street that had existed for decades. Disasters do not only destroy buildings, sometimes they destroy the things that once made a place feel like home. Perhaps nighttime is always the most terrifying part of every flood, because in darkness, no one knows how fast the water is rising, which levee could collapse, or which mountainside may slide next. In many mountain communities across Guangxi, people stayed awake all night. Some packed important documents, medicine, clothes sealed inside plastic bags. Others simply sat quietly by the window, listening to the rain and praying. Inside many homes, incense sticks were lit in silence, not because people believed they could control nature, but because during moments of helplessness, faith is often the last thing people still hold on to. In many Asian cultures, people have long believed that nature is something to respect, because no matter how advanced humanity becomes, we still remain small beneath the forces of the earth and sky. Human beings may build bigger cities, but that does not mean nature becomes smaller. But the worst part had not arrived yet. On the morning of May 22nd, Chinese meteorological agencies issued new warnings. At that point, the greatest danger was no longer only the rain. It was flash floods, landslides, mudslides, and collapsing roads. After days of nonstop rainfall, mountain soil had become completely saturated, and with just one more burst of rain, entire hillsides could suddenly collapse. Throughout May 22nd, rescue teams worked almost nonstop. Rubber boats moved through flooded neighborhoods. Emergency workers carried elderly residents, held children in their arms, and pulled people from fast-moving water. Some videos showed families stranded on rooftops waiting for rescue, overturned vehicles, streets transformed into violent rivers. By May 23rd to 24th, the extreme weather system expanded further into Hunan, Jiangxi, Guizhou, and other regions across central China. Many rivers still had not returned to safe levels. Meteorological agencies continued maintaining high-level alerts. Natural destruction is not only a channel about disasters, it is also a place where we reflect together on memories, humanity, and the way the world changes over time. If you enjoy videos that slow things down a little and encourage deeper reflection about life, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Because sometimes, the most valuable thing on YouTube is not only information, but the feeling that someone else is quietly watching this changing world together with you. Perhaps, disasters like these remind humanity of something very old, that no matter how modern we become, we are still small before nature, but there is one thing floodwater cannot wash away. Thank you for spending time with natural destruction. Stay safe, keep hope alive, and we will see you again in the next story about our changing world.